for this lesson, we're going to look at reading decimal scales. Okay, so what we've essentially got is a ruler, and it's shown from 2 to 3 to 4. Okay, so if you first of all note that our arrow is pointing at a number between 3 and 4. So if it is between 3 and 4, you know that the answer is going to be 3 point something. So it's bigger than 3, but less than 4. So it's 3 point something. We just have to work out what that something is. Okay, for this ruler, if we look at how many sections there are between 3 and 4, so we have 10 sections between 3 and 4. So it's split into 10 sections. Okay, and each section here, if there's 10 sections, each section represents 1/10. Okay, so 0.1, which is 1/10. So remember in the last video we looked at our place value. So for our place value, if we had our decimal point, before the point was the units and the tens, but after was the tenths and the hundredths. Okay, so each section here, if there's 10 of them, it is 1/10 that we're looking at. Okay, and the arrow is pointing at the fourth line along. So the first line would be 3.1, then 3.2, 3.3, this one is 3.4. So this arrow is pointing at the decimal number 3.4. Okay, let's look at a similar example. It's just slightly larger numbers, that's all. So this one is pointing between 19 and 20. So if you're looking at a number between 19 and 20, it is 19 point something, so 19 and a bit. Okay, and same again, there are 10 sections here. So each section represents 0.1. So if we count along, this would be 19.1, 19.2, 19.3, 4, 5, 19.6, 19.7, and this arrow is pointing at 19.8. So 19.8 is our answer here. So it has to be less than 20, so it can't be 20 point something. It's one of the ones over here, for example, that arrow, that would be, because it's larger than 20, it's 20, and that one would be 0.4. Okay. The next one looks really similar, but it's actually slightly different. Okay, so we have, once again, we have 10 sections. Okay, so we've got 10 sections. And previously what we're doing was we were going up in 0.1. So we were thinking if that's 11.7, this would be 11.8, 0.9, 0.10, which isn't a number. Okay, so we were going up in 0.1s. But I said that this one would be 11.8, which is incorrect because this here is 11.8. Okay, so that one there can't possibly be 11.8, so let's get rid of that. What's actually happening is we have 10 sections, but what we're actually looking for is a number that lies between 11.7 and 11.8. So we're expecting our answer to be of the form 11.7 something. Okay, so this something is going to be a hundredth. So it's 11.7 something. So we're actually looking for 100. So each section here is increasing by 0.01. That's what's happening for this question. Each section increases by 0.01. So if we count along, this arrow here is the 8th little line along. So it's 11.78 would be your answer for that question, 11.78. Okay, the next question is a little bit trickier. I want to know which decimal number each arrow is pointing at. Okay, so this is a number between 4 and 5. So bigger than 4 but less than 5, you know it's going to be 4 point something. Okay, so the arrow is pointing exactly halfway between 4 and 5. Exactly halfway. So halfway between 4 and 5 is 4.5. So remember, 0.5 represents halfway. So it's halfway between 4 and 5. Okay, so there isn't 10 sections this time. That's one thing to watch out for. So it's not 10 sections. There's actually only 1, 2, 3. There's 4 sections. So there are 4 sections in this question, which makes things a little bit trickier. So we know that right in the middle is 4.5, which is the arrow we were looking for. But let's imagine the arrow was actually pointing somewhere else. So let's imagine the arrow was actually pointing at this line here. That's halfway between 4 and 4.5. Okay, so halfway between 4 and 4.5. What we're actually increasing by each time is 0.25. it's essentially a quarter of the way along. So it's a quarter of the way along between 4 and 5. And you know that a quarter is the same as the decimal number as 0.25. So this one here would be 4.25. And the last one would be 4.75. Okay, so a little bit trickier. And then the very last question we'll address is this question here. So this one is between 12.3 and 12.4. So our number is going to be 12.3 something. So once again, we're probably looking at something in the hundredths. So we're looking at some sort of hundredth, which means it's going to be the second number after the point. Okay, so second number. So if we think, normally we'd go up by 0.1, wouldn't we? So let's say this was 12.3, and then let's say that was, imagine that was 12.31, this would be 12.32, 12.33, and this would be 12.34. But then that would mean that this one would have to be 12.35. This one doesn't work because it's not 12.35, it's 12.4. Okay, so when we have 10 sections, we go up by sort of 0.1 or 0.01 each time. But this time there's only 5 sections. Okay, so there's only 5 sections. And what that means, so let's think about it. If you had 10 and you divided it by 5, you get 2. So each of these lines represents 0.02, because that's our hundredths, which we knew we were looking for. So 2 hundredths. Okay, so this first line would be 12.32, not 12.31. The next one would be 12.34, and this one is 12.36. So 12.36 is our answer here. Okay, so 10 sections is the easiest. It goes up by 0.1 or 0.01 each time. But if you've got 5 sections, it's going up by either 0.2 or 0.02, depending on whether you're looking between 2 whole numbers or between 2 numbers that have tenths.